Howdy, welcome to Horticulture Innovators, the podcast series where we will explore impactful innovations in horticulture. I'm Amit Dhingra, your host. I'm a professor and head of the Department of Horticultural Sciences at Texas A&M University. In each episode, we'll explore the inspiring stories of the pioneers who are contributing to sustainability, wellness, and food security through their amazing work in horticulture. Howdy, Troy. Welcome to Horticulture Innovators.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dhingra. I've for a long time wanted to talk to you like this about these subjects, and I appreciate the invitation.
Well, your current identity, and this is, first of all, before I move forward, this is Mr. Troy Swift. He is the owner of the Swift River Pecans, and he's a very well-established innovator in the world of horticulture. And when we were talking and when I was inviting you for this, you said, "Hey, I'm a farmer. What am I doing here?" And I was like, "Well, you have really shown the way of how farming can be changed, how horticulture can be changed to really be economical and also environmentally sort of friendly as well." So we're very grateful because I think this is not a one-way street. We are educational institutions. We do the knowledge part, but how does that get applied? When you apply it, you learn more and get greater depth of information. And we want to learn from you as well. So before I get started as well, going any further, could you share your sort of professional journey? How did you? I've heard a lot of interesting journeys that you've taken. It'll be great for our students, our audience, to really hear from you. How did you get into pecan farming, but where all you came from?
Well, I wasn't born into a farming family. In fact, I never planted a pecan tree till I was 42 years old. Right. So there's one thing to tell people right there is you don't have to start in farming to end up in farming. Really, as a child, we moved all over North America, a lot of states, and Alberta, Canada, because my dad was in the oil business. So I had the privilege of seeing different, at least North American cultures, and ended up in Texas closer to an adult in about 1974, and ended up moving to San Marcos to go to Texas State University.
Okay.
I'm not a Texas A&M graduate.
We won't hold it against you.
But try to forgive me. Although I've associated with Texas A&M a lot in the last few years. But I moved to the San Marcos area, and I was interested in canoeing in addition to my industrial arts degree, which is what I got, a general industry industrial arts degree, which is welding and woodworking and drafting and the practical side of industry.
Yeah. And
so I learned a lot of good skills there that came to be useful really in every job I applied for. But in 1978, I was canoeing down the San Marcos River, and I got out at a bridge at Staples, Texas, on the San Marcos River, and I looked around. Keep in mind, this is me at 20 years old. I looked around, and I said, "Wow, if I ever had the money, I'd buy a place like this." Yeah. And 20 years later, I bought that place.
Sweet. Wow.
I bought that place in 1998, and it had a pecan orchard on it. I didn't really buy the place to become a pecan farmer. I bought it to live in the country and live on the San Marcos River. But it had an old Mahan orchard on it, Mahan and Delmas orchard. And so the next year, those trees produced a lot of pecans, and my wife and I were down in the orchard, and I said, "Well, Athanasi," that's my wife's name. I said, "Well, Athanasi, I guess we're going to have to learn how to be pecan farmers." What I didn't know is I had just launched a whole new career. Yeah. I intended it to be a small farm, do it for fun operation. That turned into coming over here to College Station and going to the Texas Pecan Short Course. in 2000, I believe it was, and that then proceeded into me learning about planting orchards, which I went on to do in 2001. I planted my first orchard of Pawnee, Oconee, and Kansas primarily. There's a few more varieties in there. But the other thing that happened to me is I started harvesting my natives. You know, this is the homeland of the pecan. Texas, central Texas, east of, more or less east of I-35. There's some west of I-35 too, but let's say the eastern two-thirds of Texas over into Louisiana, up into Oklahoma, and some up to Mississippi is the homeland of the pecan. That's where the natives grow and have grown for we don't know how long, hundreds of thousands of years probably. And so this farm had both natives and the old Mahan orchard, and I decided to buy a harvester and harvest my own pecans.
That's fascinating.
Well, in that year, as we've seen in the years since then, the pecans are a commodity. They go up in price, they go down in price. Well, in the pecan industry, people come in and harvest native pecans off river bottoms. Generally, those native pecan farms are owned by large people that have large land holdings. Usually there's cattle being run in them. And pecans are kind of a side income. It just so happens that native pecans are harvested just about the time property taxes are due. So a lot of farmers like to have their pecans custom harvested, and then you pay them their portion, and then they pay their property taxes with it. Unfortunately, in those years, the pecan prices went to a really low value, and so the established custom harvester didn't come around, and my neighbors saw me harvesting mine, and they said, well, our harvester's not going to show up, so you want to do our pecans? And I was still in the let's do this for fun mode, and I said, well, sure. Well, the next thing you know, I've taken over the whole San Marcos River bottom. The custom harvester never came back.
Wow, okay.
I gave the landowners a little bit better deal. And then when prices came up, when China came into the game, all of a sudden I was in a good business. I mean, you can harvest a lot of native pecans if they're on the trees, and if the weather's right and the river hadn't flooded and things like that. So that's kind of how I got into pecan farming. But coincidentally, I got a job in the jet engine business building jet engine fan blades at CFAN in San Marcos, Texas, which builds the Stage 1 fan blades for GE90 engines, which is a very visible part. If you look in the front of the engine, that's what you see. Everybody in aviation knows what that part is. And fortunately for me, I got in at let's call it the ground floor. Some engineering and scientific development had occurred, but I was really there for the initiation of production. So all of the production development, the agony of going through production yields and problems, and really getting that thing productionized, I was very much a part of that. And the good news is I was surrounded by some of General Electric's most intelligent engineers and PhDs and statisticians.
Wow.
And so they were the really the higher intellectual contributors to this, but I was more on the practical side. But I got in a training program with them, actually one of the first phases of the General Electric Six Sigma statistics instruction at General Electric.
Wow.
And I was lucky to do that. But I tell you, I was intimidated. You know, there I am with an industrial arts degree sitting with some of GE's most brilliant PhDs and engineers and expected to do projects on their level. I succeeded at that. And that was a big change in my life because it taught me that I could compete and work with people of that level of education and experience, And it also taught me that I could get through a very difficult training process. To put it another way, my boss came to me and essentially said, if you're ever going to be anybody in this company, you have to pass this. You have to take this program and pass it.
Okay.
And I did very well and got to the root cause, which I'll talk about later in agriculture. The root cause of some of the problems we were having with the fan blade. And so the real deal is the lesson learned, and what I've brought into my way of thinking in agriculture is you use data to solve problems and get to the root cause. And what that allows you to do is drive the emotion out of the decisions. If you're working on jet engines, you don't want, if there's a problem, you don't want engineers and managers and people like that going, pointing fingers at each other.
Yeah.
You want to drive the emotion out. So trained in all of those tools of Six Sigma, I now analyze my farm data with those same tools.
Wonderful.
And it's a different way of looking at farming for many farmers, and I'm really enjoying doing it.
Well, thank you for that overview. And I know that you touched upon several things, and I'm going to pick a few of those apart. We'll talk about the root cause. I'm sure there was a little pun there.
Yeah, right.
But, you mentioned, I think a lot of people don't even know that there are so many varietals of pecans as well, and natives and improved pecans. You said a few names, Mahan and Pawnee and Okona, Kanza.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't sell like the pecans in these packages up here, which are actually grown in our departmental AgriLife research orchard in Somerville, just not too far away from here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people just say we're buying pecans, but if you go buy pears, you have a Bartlett, you have an Anjo that people recognize, or summer or winter pear, depending on how much of a fruit or a nut nerd you are. But do you see any sort of difference in, or do you think there might be, first of all, before I ask the question, I mean, can you elaborate for our audience and people to like some education, what are these native and improved pecans? And what are the differences between them?
Okay, well, first of all, the native pecans, like I said, have been growing here for all of history. Who knows how long? They're highly diverse. Mm-hmm. Some are big, some are small. They taste really good. They're small. They're smaller, and they have a harder shell and a thicker shell. So they're typically by lower in nut meat percentage. For instance, mm-hmm. because the shell is thicker. So, for instance, a good native crop might produce 42% nut meat, whereas some of the better improved varieties or hybrids or varietals, whatever you want to call them, they can produce up to 60% nut meat, and it means that the nut meat is bigger and the shell is thinner. Hence the name paper shell. Paper shell is not a type of pecan. It's not a varietal. Paper shell is in what some people call anything but a native. Okay. Anything that's been hybridized to have a thinner shell. Oh, okay. But the Mahan is the famous one, the one you can crack in your hands and tear apart easily. But natives are small and harder to crack, but they're also not consistent. They do what's called alternate bearing, which is what I call unpredictable bearing, because alternate, you say on year, off year. That's not what natives do at all. Natives are big trees. They might be 100 to 300 years old, and they have some kind of cycle that they go through that only they understand. It's probably energy and nutrient and water related, and maybe heat stress and cold stress related, but nobody really knows. And so the supply chain is erratic, because you're either going to have a whole lot of them or none of them or a few of them. So hybridization came along, and not just for that reason, but for higher nut quality. But hybridization came along, and really what people were selecting for was Was it a big pecan,
Big pecan, yeah.
a thin shell pecan, high nut meat content? One of the more interesting things that it's selected for is how well does it shell out in mechanical shellers?
Sure.
Like, does it come apart in halves, or does it come apart in pieces? Well, some of the more modern varieties that are very good, such as Kanza and Caddo, one of their real good attributes is that they crack in halves.
Wow, you can get full kernels or half kernels. Yeah,
you get full halves because the dorsal groove, that little groove along the back.
Yeah.
Well, if that is open, the shell will come out of
Easily,
it.
yeah.
And if it's closed, like it is on some natives or like in desirable variety, then you end up with a lot of pieces.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're not good. It just means they're not halves, and a lot of people like to buy halves. Although pieces are, nutritionally just as good and are used in different products. But over the years, most people ask me why do we say so many Indian names like Pawnee and Kanza and Caddo and Choctaw, Cheyenne, things like that. It's because the USDA started naming their releases, their hybrid releases after the American Indian tribe names, because the American Indians used to go to the river bottoms, which is usually the inside of the river bend on the floodplain side where the native trees grow, and the Indians would eat pecans.
Yeah.
Now, if you go back and think about that, in those days, what could be better than going down and harvesting a superfood with a great shelf life?
Yes.
I mean, you could
Exactly.
you could pick those up and eat them next month, and they're still good.
Yeah.
So the USDA started naming all their hybrids after the American Indians, and that started in 1955. And I think the first release was Comanche. Comanche. And this was Comancheria.
Yeah.
This is where the Comanches lived, right here in the homeland of the pecan.
You just mentioned superfood. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? Because I think there is so much, we think pecans, these are ancient, but superfood is a new thing, and I think a lot of people don't realize how important the nutrient profile of pecans is.
So pecans are now considered a superfood, and it is because of their nutrient value, their high oil content, and the constituents of that. And it's starting to be studied, and it's even passed some study, and there's evidence to show that eating pecans can be good for you, in fact is good for you. I guess we're not supposed yet to claim that they are heart healthy, but there's some studies that indicate that. And one reason I planted my trees in 2001 is I got word of this, that pecans and nuts in general were going to be considered a health food or a superfood. And I said, well, in 2001, I was still working at the jet engine place. I said, you know what, I'll plant these pecan trees now, and by the time those trees come into production and I retire, pecans will be considered a health food. And now they are.
They are,
And now they are. So now we not only grow pecans and sell halves and pieces, but we also make pecan oil.
Oil as well.
So you can also use pecan oil as a healthy addition to your recipes instead of butter.
So how does it compare to other oils, corn oil, canola oil, vegetable oils? I mean, is it similar, or olive oils? I mean, is it similar to olive oil in terms of...
So olive oil is always the one that I compare it to, because olive oil is very popular.
Yes.
And I hope the pecan industry does with pecan oil what olive industry did with olive oil. I mean, we need that. But so does the consumer, because here's the deal. Pecan oil has a much higher smoke point. It has a 470F smoke point, and it's lower in saturated fat than olive oil. So if you're looking to lower your saturated fat profile and you don't like the way food tastes if you happen to burn it in olive oil, then pecan oil
Oh.
is another option, and it's a really good option.
Another horticultural innovation.
Yeah, that's right. And
Well-
we make our own pecan oil. We press it right there at our farm.
Well, it's very interesting that your work with the jet engine, as well as on the pecan, seems like those things have run in parallel. And you mentioned about the root cause. So let's talk about the root cause problem you solved at the jet engine operation, and then how is that solved? We'll come to the pecans next.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I did a lot of different Six Sigma projects back in the jet engine days, but in composites. So these, I didn't mention that, but these composites are these fan blades are made out of carbon fiber.
Mm.
Now, most jet engines have titanium fan blades, but GE launched a new composite fan blade in the early 90s. And so one of the problems is in composites, if the fiber has a wrinkle in it,
Mm-hmm.
then it can't carry the load. Now, keep in mind, this fan blade is spinning at 2,500 RPM. And if the fiber, think of a rope, if it's stretched out all the way, it can carry the load. But if it has a bend in it and you pull on it, it's going to snap.
Yeah.
Well, so you can't have wrinkles in fan blades.
Yeah.
So my job in this particular portion of the fan blade that had a very high contour area, without getting too complicated, it has a lot of contours and a lot of elevation changes and what are called ply drops. And so my job was to study that and figure out how to make those wrinkles go away so that the fan blade could pass X-ray inspection, CT inspection. And again, that was in that first class where I was surrounded by all those high-powered intellectuals, let's call them. And I succeeded in doing that, and that reduced the scrap rate of the fan blade.
Wow.
And that was really a game changer in my career because the management saw how I worked through that project, and therefore I was advanced, in position up until I was finally the manufacturing manager of the whole factory.
That's cool. So you, as you said earlier, you utilize data to solve a complex problem, and that was building those jet engine blades. And now, how has that translated into your farming? I mean, what problem did you see, first of all, that triggered the whole innovation that we initially talked about, regenerative agriculture? I will call it regenerative horticulture because you're growing a horticultural crop, but of course.
Yeah, and so now, because unfortunately the word regenerative agriculture is having some connotations that some people don't like.
Yeah.
Now there's a new term that we're using called soil health management.
Okay.
Soil health management, but it all means the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I'll continue to use the word regenerative, at least for the time being. What changed my trajectory in agriculture was I had some 12-year-old trees that began to die. They were Sioux trees, another Indian name.
Okay.
Sioux trees in a very prominent part of my farm, like right when you drive in my farm. These are the trees you see. So, you don't want the first trees people see to be the ones that are dying.
Yeah.
And so in the freeze of 21 that we had, prior to that, these trees went into decline. They started turning a funny color, kind of a orangish reddish color, and went into decline, and production went down, and then some of them didn't survive the freeze. They just didn't come back.
Wow.
And they died, and so I asked some scientists to come in and look at the remaining living ones that were also on their way out. I said, what is wrong with these trees? And the scientists said, well, we don't know. We don't know. It could be the rootstock. It could be the soil. And I said to myself, well, I'm not going to start over. These are 12-year-old trees.
Yeah.
I'm not going to assume it's the rootstock. I can't do anything about the rootstock, but I can study the soil. And so that launched me into studying the soil.
Okay.
And that opened a whole new world for me in soil biology, soil mineral attributes, organic matter, mycorrhizal fungi. I mean, things I had never even considered thinking about, and certainly wasn't taught in the old agriculture world.
That's fascinating.
Okay, and that's something that's changing now, even here at A&M, and I'm glad that it is. But it's also changing at other universities and institutions. So I met a man named Dennis Purrs. I went to his orchard in August when trees are in the maximum stress, and I never had met the man, so he invited me there. He was in his barn. I pulled up in his orchard, and before I ever met him, I met his orchard. And as I walked through it in August, I said, man, there's something good going on here. No leaf scorch, nice big crop. The orchard floor was green. It was lush. Yeah. And this is not a river bottom orchard either. This is an upland orchard, which you're not really supposed to grow pecans in.
So was Dennis, had he been farming? His family had been farming for a long time?
No, he was retired from Dow Chemical. He was an engineer or something like that from Dow Chemical. But he had gotten on the soil health way of farming 15 or 16 years ago, and was actually told he was wasting his time with that orchard there. And
he turned it around. Huh?
And he turned it around, but he was not well accepted in the industry. He tried to do presentations, and he was before his time.
Yeah.
And he had a mentor named Betsy Ross, who was pure organic type lady, and she was his mentor. But he was not organic. He liked to combine organics and regenerative practices and conventional to get the results, and he did the data like I do, and he knew what he was talking about. So he showed me what he was doing. That's when I changed, and that's when I changed for real. I had in 19 is the last time I ever sprayed herbicide. I gave up herbicide.
So the last 6 years you have not sprayed any herbicide?
No herbicide. 19. If you look at pictures of my orchard in 2019, which is my last video that I have about my business, you'll see herbicide rings around the bases of the trees. That's the last year I never, how it's very easy to eliminate herbicide. All you got to do is not buy it.
And saved some cost as well then.
Well, it does save cost. Now, there is other cost associated with it. I mean, you still do have to go back and weed eat around your sprinkler heads and the bases of the trees now and then just so the sprinkler heads work. But we got rid of herbicide, and that plays well into the 6 soil health principles of regenerative agriculture, which the first 2 are keep the ground covered and have a continuous living root. And so now the paradigm change. So I have paradigms too. I mean, I'm not a young buck, so. And I learned the old way. So a paradigm change was to not mow the orchard anymore. And
that's very unusual, because I think as I've traveled or seen orchards in different places, sometimes the floor can harbor pathogens and bugs and other things. So, I mean, that's very unusual.
That's right. And that's you're right. It does harbor those things, but guess what? Those are part of the whole biodiverse system. And Mother Nature has a way of taking care of the populations of predator versus prey and good microorganisms versus bad microorganisms, as long as we're not interfering too much. And so the other thing it does is if you have a biodiverse orchard floor, I'm talking about plants. Then you have all those roots going down into the soil, and you have a biodiverse population underground. Because different organisms associate with different species of plants, and so we want a broad spectrum of plants and microorganisms that are all doing their job, collecting the sun's energy, converting it to sugars through photosynthesis, and sending what the plant doesn't need down into the soil to feed
the microbes,
the microorganisms, who then feed the plants, because they mine some of the minerals that the plants can't get, and then there's this really incredible process that I only became aware of here in the last couple of years called the rhizophagy cycle, where the plants actually consume some of the organisms, and so they bait the organisms to the meristem of the root to the very tip by exuding those sugars that the microorganisms need, because they can't do it. They can't do photosynthesis, and they're in the dark. So they go to the bait, and then while they're there, the tree pulls them in and strips them of their minerals, and then when it gets done with them, it shoots them back out without killing them and says, go get some more. That's a very, I didn't know that was going on, and I read some books about it. It's very interesting. It's called the rhizophagy cycle.
Well, that's fascinating. And so when you manage or not manage the floor, you're managing without managing it in a way. How does that change the utilization of water, utilization of nutrients, temperature? Because I think that can be another factor in orchards.
Well, so there's two things that become very obvious in that. The temperature one is so obvious. You can take a thermometer down there and just put it down in that covered ground versus uncovered ground, and you might get a 30 or 40 degree difference in temperature on a sunny day. Well, if the ground gets up over about 125 degrees, the microorganisms are having a very hard time.
They're getting cooked.
Yeah. So we keep the ground shaded. So the continuous living roots and the continuous plants are keeping the ground shaded. They're keeping the ground moist, and they're adding biomass. And that leads me to the next thing that's very important about this. There's been studies done that says that for every 1% of organic matter you have in the soil, you have the ability to hold 15 to 25,000 gallons of water in the top 6 inches per acre.
Wow, okay.
So now all of a sudden, organic matter, which is being created partially by these plants, not totally, but partially, becomes very important. And in this part of the state, in fact, the sad fact is, from here to the Pacific Ocean, agriculture is already having and will have a water problem. And drought can occur because of weather, but it can also occur because of politics and regional governments. So if your irrigation is shut off, guess what? You have a drought.
Okay? That's right.
And so when I have a discussion with farmers that don't want to talk about regenerative agriculture and soil health management, which is regenerative agriculture, I always use the term countermeasure to drought. I like to use that term countermeasure because people my age understand what a countermeasure is. Like a submarine shooting out countermeasures if a torpedo's coming up. Okay, well, we have a torpedo coming. It's called lack of water. So I'm doing everything I can now to prepare my farm for those droughts, which we know will come. And it won't solve a drought problem, but it will make me more capable and more resilient. Really what we're looking for is resilient soil, resilient plants that are living in a habitat that can live under harsher conditions without suffering the consequences at least as fast.
Well, so in a way, I think you're using sustainability to also increase or maintain profitability and maintain soil health so that you can keep farming for long term. At this point, I think so. Our department's mission is kind of tied around the term sustainability. We also think about profitability. The research that we do, the training we provide our students should really all translate into the improving the economic bottom line of our farmers, of our society. One piece in that for us is the students. We want to make sure that we are training students with the right skill set so that they can continue to contribute and also sustain these industries that are, pecan industries. Like the pecan crop every year is valued about $500 million. This is just the value of the crop. I don't know what the agritourism value or the economic impact thereof is. But, we are seeing a lot of the folks, the they don't even know where their food comes from. I had the opportunity to speak to one of my friend's daughter who's now become a horticulture influencer. She teaches people, she's an apple and pear farmer now. She teaches people where their food is grown from. I mean, there is so much lack of knowledge in that. But of course, in our departments, we don't have a lot of students coming in undergrads. And once they graduate, sometimes they don't go into agriculture. How do you tie that up with how are you going to sustain the future of industries, and what message on farming you would like to provide as a profession in the future? Because, for example, what I'm hearing from you is when you started doing your work, or Dennis, for example, there are some traditional ways of thinking. Those are not valid anymore. We have to change our approach to stay profitable. So it's a complex question. I know that we don't have the answers, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
So before I answer that big complex question, I hope I can. I want to go back to your original question about why I changed in the root cause.
Yeah.
Well, those trees that were dying.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Those trees that are dying are now green, beautiful trees making pecans.
Oh, and those were Sioux.
And
trees.
those were Sioux.
Wow.
And so I had other trees in trouble too. You know, soil and location is very important on pecan trees. And it is true these Sioux trees weren't planted in the optimum place, but I wanted trees there. And other trees were also in less than optimum soils. But those trees, all of those, since I've made this change, have now done between 2 and 6 times the production that they've ever done.
Wow. So changing soil health, nutrient health has really changed. So you're basically, it's soil health management, but also it's tree health management as well through that
It is
process.
tree. So I didn't make up this term. You hear it in Regen Ag all the time. Healthy soil makes a healthy plant, makes healthy food, makes healthy people.
People, yes.
All right.
Well, there are studies done in India where based on the soil nutrient profile of minerals, you can actually predict, or there is correlation in the health of the individual, because we obviously consume produce as well as animals that graze on that produce, on those grasses in those regions. So if there is some depletion of nutrient minerals in the soils, it will translate into the well-being of individuals as well. So that's a whole food chain right there.
Well, and that's one of the mainstays of regenerative agriculture or soil health management is to provide healthy food. So now back to your student question and how that plays into this. I think there has never been a better opportunity for students to go into horticulture because of all of these new ways of thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. Industry and farmers and food influencers and people like that really are getting interested in regenerative agriculture, local foods, and food nutrition. Food nutrition. I almost said nut nutrition because we're doing a nut nutrition study now.
Wow.
We don't have the results yet, but that's one of the measures. Back to the data collection. I'll get into that later. We're collecting a lot of data, but food nutrition as a result of soil health is important. But there's a whole nother side of it too for students. Regenerative agriculture and soil health management reduces pollution.
Yeah.
It increases water quality. It reduces the amount of water that a farm should need. These things are all important to society.
Yeah.
It's not just the farmer and it's not just the person eating the food, although everybody eats food, right? But society is now interested in responsible food production. Yeah. And that means high nutrient, low pollution, low impact on the environment, low or no leaching of fertilizers into rivers that end up in the famous Gulf of Mexico dead zone. Yeah. Things of that nature are all important. So there's a lot of different jobs in agriculture that students in this department and others could go into besides just growing a plant. Yeah. Although that's pretty exciting by itself. Yeah. You know, and disease resistant and genetics and we're going to have to find a way. Here's the big picture.
Yeah.
We have to find a way to grow plants more economically with less environmental impact and less input cost, and still supply enough food for us to eat.
Yeah.
And all of that adds into that sustainability aspect
Yeah.
of the food supply.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of our researchers are focusing on all these aspects, the practices, understanding the genetics, how to reduce the inputs, yet get the yields and the quality, the nutrition piece as well. And so the G by E equation, which is genetics and environment, and then the third value is the practices, the management practices. Those are very important, really, to make healthful foods. And I kind of this ties in with our second part of our mission, the wellness piece. Working with plants makes you healthy, but also consuming healthful plants. So I'm a product of the Green Revolution. Dr. Borlaug at A&M, he was a professor. He developed the dwarf wheat, which really saved more than 1 billion lives, especially in the part of the world I come from, where I grew up, where we were so focused on calorie consumption. And I think that has been kind of the groupthink, herd thinking that we need calories. But I think the biggest piece we have missed on all of that is the nutrition piece. And I think that's where horticultural crops, which is, a lot of people don't know what horticulture is. This is my new icebreaker. I ask people, hey, what is horticulture? Flowers? Gardens? Well, they just have that understanding. And horticulture is a Latin term that does mean garden. It comes from that. But I think in today's modern definition, it is both the production and the improvement through genetics and other methods of all the healthful, edible, and all the aesthetic, the ornamentals that we cover. And of course, it also goes into landscape management and design as well. So as you said, there's a lot of opportunities, but we're a discovery major. People think this is not a positive thing because people don't know that this major exists. And it's been, the industry is horticulture industry, and we as land grant systems exist to serve the needs and training to provide the horticulture industry. So I'm really grateful for your comments on that part. I just wanted to say that what type of sort of jobs you think that students who can get a horticulture degree where they understand the principles of how to produce these permanent crops or even other horticultural crops could get?
Well, it would be vast, and of course, my perspective is mostly on the pecan industry.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's the underground part of a plant and the above ground part of the plant. And there's a lot of science that can be done on both sides.
Yeah.
Science, research, and work, for instance. And so I think students could on a plant specific topic, we need studies on the rhizosphere, the area around the root, and the biology that goes on there, and the interaction of mycorrhizal fungi, endo and ecto, and how important that really is, because as farmers we were not taught that. I might have heard about that somewhere in the past but I never really studied it until now. And so students can work on that. They can also work on the phyllosphere, which is the part of the plant above the ground. The interaction of the climate, humidity, wind, etc., with different varieties of pecan trees in this case. Yeah. Okay, a lot of trees are susceptible to some pests that others aren't. Like Cheyenne is more susceptible to black aphids than Kanza or something like that. There's a lot of opportunity and a lot of things we don't know. The other one is, and this came up in a discussion this morning, is I think there's great opportunity for people to design multi-plant or at least multi-hybrid assemblies of trees or other plants. This could apply to grapes too. It could apply to anything. Where instead of having a monoculture of say Pawnee pecan or Caddo pecan like I have, and therefore have to deal with the struggles of a monoculture other than my orchard floor, because now it's multi.
It's multi.
But designing different horticultural crops or designs or spacing
Mm-hmm.
to complement each other so that you mitigate the risk of a monoculture failure.
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal in U.S. agriculture. We have vast amounts of monoculture. And if we have a failure, it's terrible,
Yeah.
right? So we need a way to mitigate the risk. And I think if science moves that direction, which students from this department could do, I think that's very important. And I also know this for a fact. I've never had so much attention at my orchard ever as I have since I started talking about regenerative agriculture, just like this interview.
Yeah. Yeah.
And young people are very interested in this. I think this is a launch opportunity for horticulture in general by teaching a much broader range
Yeah.
of what horticulture is and emphasizing the nutrition and the environmental benefits we can get from that study.
You just mentioned about monoculture, and I know that I used to work on apples and pears, and I had been asked that question once by an attendee in a public seminar, and I was asked the question, why do we promote monoculture? And my question was, when you go to buy an apple, you look for specific varietals, right? So is this not a little bit consumer driven as well? That because if I put a bin of small, large, multiple types of apples, people are going to pick the ones they like. I mean, unless we get to that point. But in pecans, it might be possible because we don't have that recognition of a cultivar, because a lot of people haven't even heard the names of these cultivars. However, I do have one management question. If you have different genetics, but they have different maturity times, if they have different needs for disease resistance management, how do we, I mean, it comes with a challenge. Not having a monoculture or a multiculture also comes with a challenge, and especially with this commoditized farming now or products, that's kind of pushed us towards that. Although having a very highly variable population of weeds, as you're saying, or underground cover really benefits microbes. I mean, I don't know where to reconcile that. I'm not a farmer, so I'm just asking.
Well, it's a very valid question, and there is no easy answer, to tell you the truth. I have that situation in my Pawnee orchard, for instance, because I'm fighting some of the challenges with Pawnee. If I had a tree in trouble, or a tree died, or something happened, and I needed to put a new tree in, I would always put in a different variety to get the variation, to get away from the monoculture. And I'm glad I did it. I wish I'd have done more, because if you have a variety that struggles with maybe a heat wave, the other variety might not struggle with that. Now all your eggs, for lack of a better term, are in one basket. And so the difficulty is that you simply have to bypass that tree when you're harvesting if it doesn't mature at the same time, or if you don't want to mix it in, if you want to keep your varietals separate. So you just have to harvest at a different time, which does reduce the efficiency of the machines and the people going into the field, but it doesn't reduce it as much as losing a monocrop to
complete disaster,
to a disaster. And not only that, and size of farm matters too. If you know, I have 60 acres of improved trees, so I can manage that. I know where the trees are. I have them all marked. I can harvest these, then harvest those, keep them separate. And in my retail store, I sell by variety. I don't sell just pecans. I always label by variety, and people appreciate that because I can offer them a taste test. When they ask me, Troy, what's the best pecan? I say, that's not for me to decide. That's for you to decide. And then I'll crack 3 or 4 different varieties and hand it to them. And some immediately go to one, but you might pick one, and your wife might pick another one. You know, so I like to have the variety, and I like to be able to offer customers that. But it does create a challenge on the farm. So I would say if you were if you were a big operation, then you might be able to do it by just saying, well, I'm not going to separate my varieties. But what you need to do is you can select different varieties that mature at the same time. And so that you don't have to go back in with the machines.
You know what you just said reminded me of a term I learned from a farmer up in Michigan, Ohio area. He's when I met him, he was 85. He was they've released some apples like Evercrisp apple that came from that program from that group of farmers. His name is Mitch Lind. He talked about plurality of perfection. So that concept still sticks with me because what might be best for me may not be the best for somebody else's preferences.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating. Well, I wanted to come to this part of food security. I mean, that's our department's mission. I mean, that's our guiding principle as well. And I think part of it is how do we produce food here? How do we provide or train individuals who can supplant as the farmers retire? I mean, we know the adage, less than 1% of farmers in the U.S. feed rest of the country. And we import a lot of food from other countries as well. I mean, food security to us, it means different things to different people. But I think the emerging sort of area is that how do we train people well and how do we produce our food very well? I think you've kind of led the way in that, starting your own orchard at the age of 42. Can you comment a little bit on this food security aspect and a message to our upcoming generation, what we need to do with food production?
Well, that can turn into a very big picture view, and it is a big picture view.
Is, yeah.
First of all, I think we ought to be growing the best food available to man. And so, if we can grow the best food, it should be the food everybody wants. Yeah. That gives us food security here, gives us good nutrition in our population, and it makes the rest of the world want our food.
Yeah.
But we can't do it the way we're doing it now. Mm-hmm. We have to change these soil health principles, conserve soil, conserve water, or we're going to have a food security problem if we can't economically produce food. We will be more and more inclined to, as a nation, to buy from abroad. Yeah. That's dangerous. Yeah. Very dangerous. We don't want to do that. So I think we launch into you can't do this broad scale. There's too much economy of scale involved. But we need people to be growing the best food they can and specializing in maybe not in specializing in a particular crop, because some crops can be grown, lots of crops can be grown in the same place. But be able to grow the best food, the highest nutrition food, and market that food so that people here want to buy it instead of what's coming from abroad.
Yeah. Well, food security is often been equated to national security.
Yeah, and it is.
That's what it is.
And I mean, there's lots of old sayings that if a country loses its soil, it loses its freedom, right?
Yeah. Well, I know that there are several other innovations you're doing in your farm, and I've seen the bat houses.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How did you end up, I mean, here you are, a jet engine production manager, or fin production manager on one side. You have a pecan orchard that you started working on, and then bats. Are you Batman?
Yeah. Well, so when I started bats, my parents said I'd gone batty, and they already knew I'd gone nutty when I started pecan farm. No, what happened? It was part of the biodiversity and regenerative agriculture effort. And what really happened was, after one of the pecan conventions back in 21, I guess, I had started this regenerative soil health way of farming, but I have paradigms. I was scared of what I was doing, so I asked a bunch of scientists at the convention to come out to my orchard after the convention was over, because it was close to where my farm is. I said, I want y'all to just come out here and look, and let's talk about all this and see what you think. And so scientists from different organizations came out there, and a lady that I know had a nearby orchard, and her husband is Merlin Tuttle, who happens to be one of the most famous bat scientists in the world.
Okay.
And he's easily researchable if you want to look him up. But she brought him to this impromptu meeting. And I didn't know he was going to be there, but I knew who he was. I mean, he's a famous guy. So I had all these PhDs and scientists around me, and he's a PhD also. And I said, well, I didn't know you were going to be here, but I'm going to give you a few minutes to talk. So why don't you tell us what you see here? And he talked about biodiversity and use of bats in agriculture, which they are incredibly important to agriculture. They really don't get the credit that they deserve. They keep us from spraying fungicides and pesticides. And they save crops that they get no credit for because they're hard to study because they fly at night. But he said, you know, with the biodiversity around here, meaning the native pecan trees and the other trees around the orchard, plus the hybridized trees and the river, which is a water source, he said, you really ought to put up a bat house. And because one of our main pests, two of our main pests are actually moth species that fly at night. That's pecan nut case bear and hickory shuckworm. They fly at night, and we have to spray for them. And well, insecticides is one of the things I want to reduce, not increase. Cost, environmental impact, and I just don't like spraying them. Every time I spray something like that, I'm looking at the sprayer going, what am I doing? I hate spraying this stuff. But he says, you know, they eat these moths. So I said, well, you give me a bat house design. He said, you ought to put up a bat house. I said, you give me a design, and I'll put one up. Then he came up to my sawmill. We have a sawmill where we saw up big trees that fall. We don't cut down trees, but if one falls, we saw them up into lumber, big pieces of wood. So we had some cypress there that had that the 2015 flood on the San Marcos and Blanco River had knocked down. We would never cut one of those down. But anyway, it has an attribute called pecky cypress. It means it's really rough. Looks like wormholes, but it's not. It's actually caused by a fungus in the tree. But it's really rough. And he saw that wood and he said, Troy, that's the best bat house material I've ever seen because it gives them something to hold on to. And cypress is very rot resistant. So perfect. Which means it can last a long time outside, and it's very lightweight after it's kiln dried. So has all these things going for it. So instead of putting one together, he had designs. He had two different designs, and he says he has a lot of designs, but two of them we chose. And he said, why don't we put up some of each and see which one works the best? See which one they like the most. So we ended up putting up 16 of them.
Wow.
8 in each orchard. I have 2 orchards. 8 in each orchard. And then of course, as science goes and scientists think, he says, well, now we have 2 designs. Why don't we paint half of them and not paint half of them and see if that makes any kind of difference? I actually went to the store with a piece of the wood, and I said to the lady at the store, I said, mix me some paint that's this color. And she did a pretty good job because we didn't want color to matter. We just wanted the fact whether the paint sealed it made a difference or not. Well, I'm a wood guy. I should have seen right through that. Wood doesn't stay the same color if it's not painted. It turns gray. And so just a few months later, we had what they used to be the color of the wood, and now we have gray ones. So that's part of the experiment. And then, guess what? There's guano fall in here. You put a snake screen around to keep snakes from going up. So now we ought to collect this guano and see what kind of bats they are. Okay, so we collected the guano and sent it to a lab at Northern Arizona University called Species from Feces. And they can tell us what...
Well, a lot of people don't know what guano is. Maybe.
Guano is bat droppings. Is a nice way to say it. Yes. And so then we're doing that anyway. So this Species from Feces lab can also tell us what they're eating. So now we're really getting to it. Let's go see if they're eating
those moths.
Those moths.
Yes.
Okay. And other things. Well, so we did that, and we're still doing it. By the way, we got funded by a group called the Brown Foundation that gave us about $50,000 to study this for
Wow.
a while, and it takes a lot of money
Yes.
to do that. I mean, sending those samples to that lab, and turns out they eat everything.
Mhm.
It turns out that if it flies, it dies. Okay.
Wow.
If it flies at night, for
Yes.
instance, you won't find honeybee DNA in this guano,
Yeah.
but you will find all sorts of beetles.
Oh.
I mean, the beetle group is huge, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I had to become an amateur entomologist to turn these reports in with the scientific names into what does this mean to a farmer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but
Fascinating.
they eat lots of beetles. They eat lots of moth varieties.
How many different types of moths you caught so far, or detected?
Oh, well, let's put it this way. I think we've determined that in this guano that we've found over 200 different
Wow.
species of
Flying.
arthropods.
Wow. Okay.
You don't say
Yeah.
insects.
Yeah, you say arthropods.
You
of
say
course.
arthropods because they eat things besides insects. Like they'll even eat spiders.
Oh.
If a spider is blowing in the wind in a web, he's a goner. Okay. But anyway, the interesting thing is beetles. Now, there's good beetles and bad beetles. Lots of moth. Moth is like, if you make a Pareto chart, it's
Yeah.
beetles, moths. But guess what? Then it goes to mosquitoes and flies.
Hmm.
Now, this is important for all agriculture. In fact, all of these bugs are important somewhere in agriculture.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
corn has the corn earworm, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a moth. They eat that too.
Oh.
But mosquitoes and flies, now this ought to really get the cattle people and the livestock people excited. We've actually found cattle DNA in the guano because a mosquito had been on a
Cattle.
cow,
Wow.
and we found human too.
Oh wow.
Now that could have been a contamination issue.
Some vampire bats?
maybe I sneezed or something. No,
No, just
fortunately there are no vampire bats in North America
Yeah,
this
I'm
far
just
up.
kidding.
They're down
Yes.
in Central America. So a lot of mosquitoes is important not only just to agriculture,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
how about parks, recreation, golf courses,
Yeah.
people's backyards?
Yeah.
I mean, it's very important, and the poor bat doesn't get any credit for this. So they eat a lot of mosquitoes, and we've found data that indicates they're eating mosquitoes that carry some of these bad diseases too.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's so fascinating.
yeah.
This innovation. I mean, it's hiding in plain sight because it's at night in a way.
Yeah.
So that's the innovation on that part. But I also wanted to come back to the root cause. And I had a question, what all innovations have you tried on the soil aspect? I mean, I've participated in one. You taught me how to plant pecans as well in 23. So we've done one experiment, but you have a spectrum of things you have tested and tried, and it'll be great to have a little overview of that as well.
Okay. Well, one more thing on the bats.
Sure,
though.
yeah, sorry. I don't know.
For the people that are still skeptical, they eat ants, and they eat termites, and
Perfect.
they eat cockroaches.
Oh, wow.
So those of you that hate those kind of bugs, you should like bats.
Wow, that's fascinating.
And it goes on and on. They'll eat
is there a
beneficials too, but they,
Yeah.
predator-prey ratio, they
Yeah.
get very.
Is
few
there a
of those.
special type of bat that you have, or
Yeah,
this is
these
just-
houses are housing Brazilian freetails, which most people know as Mexican freetails. They're really Brazilian freetails.
Okay.
And the other is evening bats, which are forest bats. They can live in a house or in the trees.
Okay.
And they come and go, and we have a lot of data on that. And we actually have a graduate student right now working on a lot more of this data.
Cool.
But back to your other question, bats are one of those biodiverse things. But there's several other things I'm doing. One is your biochar experiment.
Yeah.
Okay, you know about it, but the audience doesn't. And that is that we're testing growth rate on bare root planted trees that we planted in 2023, and Dr. Dinger and I designed an experiment where we give these trees different treatments at planting, and those different treatments are two different biochars
Nachos, yeah.
at two different rates, one at 10 and one at 15% of whole volume.
Yeah.
And then we also added Johnson Sioux bioreactor compost at 10 and 15% of
As well, yeah.
whole volume, and those different combinations are planted in 110 tree cans of pecan
Yeah.
experiment, and now we're measuring the growth rate, the diameter at 3 feet above the ground with calipers.
Yeah.
So we're measuring the caliper with calipers.
Electronic. Yes.
And so far, the one of the mineral enhanced biochar is ahead on growth.
Yeah.
We'll just have to see over the next few years which one really comes out ahead.
I think that experiment is very unusual because a lot of times we don't even think long term. I mean, everybody wants instant gratifications. Like if I put something, I should get a result. So I think that's I think you have a lot of patience as well, because with innovation you have to be patient as well. But are there other treatments that you've also tested? I mean, we've been to some of your field days.
Well, so you heard me mention this Johnson bioseer reactor.
Exactly.
I didn't invent that. Dr. Johnson invented that at New Mexico State University. And this is the simplest way to make high quality compost there is, in my opinion.
Okay.
It's totally passive and it's cheap. So you just make this cylinder out of on top of a pallet out of concrete wire and landscape fabric, and there's a special assembly with some PVC pipes, and you fill it up with high carbon materials. Pecan farmers like to use high carbon materials because we have lots of limbs that we have to chip up, and you fill it up, and you can research this online how to do it. I recommend doing that. Everybody should have one of these, even gardeners, because this is the highest quality compost I think you can get. And I have it tested, by the way.
Yeah.
Just like all this
because
other data.
You collect data. Yeah.
All right. So I didn't just believe this was going to be the good stuff. I had it tested. Very high fungal to bacterial ratio.
Oh, okay.
So good for higher order plants, right?
Yes.
So the people in grapevines and orchards and peaches and all sorts of higher order plants should investigate this, is the right way to say it. Totally passes it, except that you have to water it 1 or 2 minutes a day. So you need to put it on a timer or you won't get it done.
Yeah.
But in 1 year, you can take high carbon materials to the richest compost that you can imagine.
When you say high carbon, is that meaning like dense wood?
I mean in wood chips.
Wood chips. Okay.
I did 6 different recipes, just wood chips. I did sawdust. Remember, I have a sawmill.
Yeah.
I did wood shavings. I did pecan shells. I did brewer's waste from beer.
Yeah.
I did all kinds of different things, kept track of it all. And unlike life usually is, the easiest one turned out to be the best. That's very unusual in life. And it was wood chips.
Wow.
Wood chips, just like you would get if they were chipping for the electric company.
Yeah.
So when they're out chipping, I always stop and say, "Bring me all your chips." Now the other thing we have done, and our data is indicating that this is a good thing, and our data is derived from the Haney soil test and the PLFA soil test, which have biological constituents. PLFA is biological. Haney soil test has a biological constituent with kind of more traditional elemental evaluation. But we spread wood chips on the orchard floor with a manure spreader. So here's the deal about the Johnson Sioux compost. The amazing thing about it is if it's mature in about a year, it dissolves. And so we put it in a big tub and we dissolve it.
Wow, the wood chips are dissolved.
They're
compost.
gone.
Yeah.
There's no identification at all. It's compost. It has earthworms that we didn't put in there. All kind of arthropods, all kind of things crawling around in it. It smells like compost. It looks like compost. But you put it in water and it dissolves. I mean, it dissolves. It turns into brown water. Now, this is not compost tea.
Yeah.
Because we're not brewing it. We're not adding food. We're not adding air and all that. No, we're just dissolving it and putting it in a 500-gallon sprayer, and we spray it on the orchard floor. So we're spraying high fungal to bacterial, very alive material. And not only that, now I've made a machine that has knives. Agriculturally, they're called shanks. Yeah. And we can shank it into the soil along the drip line of the tree so that it is not subject to UV radiation or dehydration before it gets to the soil.
Wow.
So remember, those organisms were grown on wood chips.
Yeah.
So if we go in and do that, and then we come along and lightly spread wood chips over the top of them, we've now just given them more food to continue to work on. And we're holding the soil temperature down, and we're increasing organic matter and feeding those organisms. And so the data is suggesting, and this is done through the Noble Research Institute, 6-year study, it's long-term study with these tests, along with leaf analysis, by the way, and nut nutrition analysis. So we're doing it all. We're doing it all. The data is showing that the available nitrogen is going up pretty dramatically. The organic nitrogen, the available nitrogen to the tree. Organic carbon, that's a funny word, right? Organic carbon is organic, but anyway, it's called water extractable organic carbon, which is food for microorganisms, is going up. But here's a very important thing: our pH is going down, and we're in a very high pH situation. We're at the 8.2, 8.3 range, which starts to challenge many plants, right? And now I'm not saying we're knocking it down a whole number. Don't get me wrong. But I am saying we're taking some of the decimals off. And so we're charting that and seeing that we're having an impact on pH, which then makes more nutrients available to the plants if you get into a more reasonable pH range. And so the theory is that the fungal population is actually through their biology, and I don't pretend to understand this, but through their biology is actually emitting some acids that reduce pH.
I'm very curious on what you just said earlier. How does that impact the nutritional content of the pecan nut?
Well, so if you look at a pH chart, you'll see these elements, and there's a chart that usually is horizontal, and where that nutrient is available is a fat line, and then it'll, as pH goes up, a lot of them get real skinny, like zinc and manganese. Zinc and manganese, well, pecan trees need zinc and manganese. So and other things too, but if the pH goes down, it can move you into the zone where the plant can more readily absorb those nutrients, let's call them, and they then can deliver it to the nut.
Fascinating.
To the nut.
You know, I was also thinking, we do nutritional profile of how much of pecan nuts not from the elemental side, but also the unsaturated fats, the ions that are there or minerals there are. I'm expecting that as you do this analysis for pecan nuts, you might see some, going back to the previous concept, healthy soils, healthy nations, or healthy people kind of concept. So that's fascinating. I wanted to kind of, this has been really exciting. Of course, you and I have talked many times. I'm so glad we've been able to put this in electronic form now, this conversation, because you have done so many things. Your orchard is your sort of experimental lab. You're doing many things. What do you see the future would be in the sense of application of technology? I know these are working with nature, and I think with all the robotics and machine learning and AI coming into the picture, and you've been in the world of Boeing and GE, where you've done some technology work. Where do you see where is the trend moving towards?
Well, I think there's some technical advancements that either are maybe in existence now but not readily available to the farmer, and one of them it could be available to the farmer or the consumer, and one of them is a nutrient analyzing device.
Oh, okay. Just like the tricorder we used to see in Star Trek.
Star Trek is here, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But a nutrient reading instrument is talked about in regenerative agriculture sometimes, and I know there's been one or two invented, but I don't think they're readily available. Maybe not cost attainable by the average person yet. But we need to be able to go to the leaves, for instance, of any crop, and have this device analyze it so that we can adjust our fertilization or our water in real time.
Yeah.
Today, leaf analysis is used, conventional leaf analysis, but by the time you get the data, that the time has passed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sap analysis is now something that people are using, where they extract sap and study it for its contents and bricks, which is something we need to talk about. And but still, that takes a little time.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
And really, sometimes you got to send it to Europe to get it done. Why can't we do that in the United States?
I think we can.
And I think we can too. And also pressure. What's called a pressure bomb. Don't get alarmed. It's a thing used for
plant physiology research.
Plant physiology. How much water a petiole has in it, or a leaf, right? We need to start using that. We need to get on that, because it can. It's not new technology, but it's underutilized, at least in pecans. I know they use them in pistachios and other crops in California, but why aren't we using them?
Mm-hmm.
And that can tell us the water stress of our plant. And really, when it comes time just before harvest, that could be very important, because water has been correlated by Dr. Stein of A&M to shuck opening.
Yeah.
And we need to know, if we knew these things in real time, we could apply our water more efficiently and at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And then also not apply water when we don't need to.
So basically collecting data from the plant and making decisions based on that in real time is kind of the connectivity you're mentioning. And I think that's where a lot of the research in a lot of permanent crops is trying to get to. Trees are very hard. These are very large trees. And, seeing that what happened early 1900s, when apple and cherry trees pear trees used to be 100 feet tall, and people were using ladders. And now they've gone to about 8 to 10 foot fruiting walls. Do you ever foresee that pecans could become that way?
If pecans were dwarfed, if that's what you mean,
yes,
right?
Sir, yes, sir.
If they were dwarfed, then we could go to a much higher density of trees per acre.
Yeah.
And not have to spend all the time either removing overgrown trees or doing hedging. So if it could be done, also it would make the equipment smaller.
Yes.
And I mean, lots of good things would happen. If that technology could become available, it would be a real win for the industry, I think.
Yeah.
Pecan trees, the problem with them is they get way bigger than a pear tree.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Yes.
We have 200 or 300-year-old natives that are over 100 feet tall.
Yeah, I've stood one in front of one of those. And felt so small.
And that takes big equipment. If you're going to shake that, it takes big equipment. Not very many people have that equipment. So those kind of technologies, but back to one of them that I think is really important, and I think it's not far from being available, is the nutrient evaluation tool, because that could also be taken to the grocery store. The consumer could evaluate, is that tomato better than that tomato, based on more than just looks. A lot of times people are buying fruits and vegetables on looks, not on nutrition. In fact, probably almost all the time.
Well, Red Delicious Apple is a great story,
right?
Based on looks only.
And so I think, back to even what your students could be studying, is that aspect of the importance of growing high nutrition food and how to select it. So that your family's eating the right food. And that's going to put pressure, by the way, when that starts happening. That's going to put pressure on probably the need to reduce insecticides, fungicides, herbicides, all those things.
All right, so this has been a great conversation, and I wanted to just, you live in a world where you're experimenting, doing new things, and obviously you grow pecans now. You are 20 plus years into pecan product farming as well, and because you opened your mind to data, you opened your mind to innovation. What is your sort of list, if you had a top 10 list of, or whatever that number is, of the qualities that you need in pecan production, or improvements or technologies? What would that look like?
Two sides of that. There's two answers to that. one is what I'm doing is challenging academia to go out and study these new things.
Yeah, appreciate
Now,
it.
that's not just me doing
Yeah.
that. I mean, there's a lot of people doing that, but we are noticing a change in the interest of the scientists at Texas A&M and at other universities and institutions. And so I'm in a position, because of my age and my personal situation, that I can do this. Oh, by the way, I don't think we mentioned this, but I'm the president of the Texas Pecan
Yes.
Growers Association as well, which gives me some visibility
Yes,
and gets me in front of people. And because of my position, I am wanting to challenge the scientists to open their mind and start validating some of these regenerative ideas, because they are not all scientifically evaluated to my satisfaction. We could be doing something wrong and don't know it.
Well,
but I want it studied.
Yeah.
And that's happening.
What you just said is very important. And I, in my career, I think I've learned more listening to the farmers. And I think that's what we are trying to do is, this is a two-way street, as I said initially. Just because we have a PhD degree doesn't mean we know everything. And especially with, you have 60 acres of pecan orchard. Of course, my colleague Monty Nesbitt has a very large orchard. But most of the scientists, I mean, sometimes we don't even leave our office and we imagine that the farmer must need this.
Yeah.
And I think that has to be broken, because we need to get out of our offices. And, I've learned a lot traveling the industry here in the Pacific Northwest. And these are not farmers anymore. These are my friends and family. I mean, I learned so much. Same with you when you taught me how to plant pecans. I just wanted to make that comment. I think that's the true essence of the land grant mission also, is we learn together, we find what the issues are, and then I do the research so that we can deliver on those issues that you're facing. So please continue with the list.
Well, it's very important for academia and extension and all those combinations to go into the field, see the dust, sweat the sweat, dig the holes like you did, plant the trees. I mean, it just like when I was in the jet engine business, I had an office too.
Yeah.
But I learned on the floor. I learned by building the parts. And you have to know how to build the parts before you can manage the people and make process improvements and error proof. Okay. And same thing in horticulture. If you get out there and do it, see the trees, see what the leaf color is, look at the limb structure, look at the root structure, soil profiles, water quality, all of that stuff are key indicators that the scientists need to know to make their study more valid, let's say. One other little technical thing that I think really needs to be studied in plants in general is the BRIX, the bricks. Okay, and what that is a measure of the dissolved solids in sap. That's really what it is, and it can be studied in the field with a refractometer. Now, why is this important? It's because there are theories that if you can raise the bricks of plants, they become less susceptible to insects.
Yes.
Because the theory says, and there's PhDs that back this up too, that as the bricks goes up, some insects or arthropods don't have the digestive capability to eat the plant. Specifically, I'm talking about aphids. And other things too. That applies to grasshoppers.
Exactly.
But we need a breakthrough, a non-insecticide breakthrough is what we need to control insect pests. Now, in pecans, or arthropod pests. In pecans, that's aphids. Yellow aphids and black aphids are the main two. There's the black margined also, but those are the two. And the black aphid requires a pretty hardcore insecticide if you're going to spray it. I've only sprayed one time, and I'll never do it. I shouldn't say never, but I don't have to spray for that. Now, why is that? Okay, And then the other enemy to a lot of agriculture is stink bugs and leaf-footed bugs, which cause damage in all kinds of fruits. We need to see. Now, it might not work out, but we need to know. We need to see if we can come up with a non-insecticide deterrent for that, which could be bricks.
Yeah.
Or I read in a book on biodiversity that there are sometimes pheromones or things of that nature that can actually scare them off.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Not trap them. See, we always think of pheromones as being attractive, where we trap like we do with pecan nut casebear. But what if we had a pheromone of a natural predator that we could spray, and it causes the stink bugs to want to go the other way?
Yeah.
You know, there's got to be a better way, and if that could be discovered, stink bugs are so damaging in all crops.
Yes.
It would be a breakthrough and a reduction of insecticides that are going into the environment. I really think that's very important. Now, one other thing that's going on that's important is pecan weevil research. Pecan weevil is not in our area, and it's not here in this area either, but it is a big pest in pecans, and genetic understanding of where those weevils originate is very important, because we need to understand how they travel across North America. And so there are some studies going on about that, but we need to continue to do those kind of studies so that we can understand pest migrations or movement by humans, like in equipment, and understand where they came from. And that brings me to one final thing, back to the bats. There's a new term that I read the other day called chirosurveillance.
Okay.
And what that is using bat guano to detect invasive species.
Wow. Okay.
And I read a paper on it the other day where it can detect an invasive species about particularly the marmoladed stink bug, because they eat stink bugs. I didn't get to there.
Oh, yeah.
Bats eat stink bugs.
Okay.
Bats can detect marmoladed stink bug, which is an invasive species, which is not here yet, by the way, 4 weeks before pheromone traps can.
Wow. Okay.
And I read a paper on that. It's called chirosurveillance. In fact, Kyle Slusher, Dr. Slusher from A&M, is the one that brought that to my attention.
Well, the list you've shared with me is really also indicating that we don't exist in isolation. We need to collaborate across disciplines. Entomologist seems like a natural, and we do work together. Our colleagues work together on this as well. So this is really important as well. Just as you have partnered and collaborated with so many folks to make your orchard as a pecan orchard library, a lab, a research lab in a way. Troy, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much for your time today. I think this is going to be sort of a episode I'm going to look back and learn more and more every time I listen. So thank you very much for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been very enjoyable, and I really enjoy associating with you and the university.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Horticultural Innovators. Subscribe if you want to learn more and spread the good word. Thanks, and Gary.